Hello, hello. Welcome back to another episode or session, if you will, of Tabnine Office Hours. I am your host, Chris Good, Director of Product Marketing here at Tab9. If you all haven't been with us before, welcome. This is an interactive session meant to ask questions. We can deep dive into specific topics as we go along, but feel free to utilize that chat section, use the comments. I will be looking through them as we move along. And yeah, feel free to introduce yourself. And if you're here again, thanks for joining us again, and excited to kick this session off. Favorite part of the job. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get right into it. So we're all here and we all know AI is here as well, right? And Gartner is forecasting that adoption is going to rise even more rapidly this year, right? So they're saying by 2028, 75% of software engineers will use AI code assistants. And that number is up from less than 10% in early 2024. And to be fair, I would say that that's a pretty low estimation, right? We're conservative, if you will. I think we're going to see those numbers greatly surpass that even by the end of this year, right? And that's not really surprising. Let me remove this banner here. All right. And that's not really surprising, right? We uh we know that AI is fundamentally changing software development, and the productivity gains for using an AI code assistant for engineering teams has been incredible. And that's regardless of what tool you're using, right? Whether it's an AI code assistant or a generic LLM. These solutions have real world value and are helping engineering teams deliver exponentially faster than they ever have before. And specifically at Tab9, the increase we've seen our customers come to expect ranges from, on the low end, 30%, and on the high end, 50% increase in productivity gains across the full set of tasks that constitute the SDLC. Now, Gartner is also reporting that by 2028, 60% of IT operations are going to be supported by AI agents. And that's up from less than 5% in late 2024. And 40% of engineering leaders, or for 40% of the engineering leaders, the performance quality of AI agents is their most important consideration factor when deciding to select a vendor, right? So the biggest problems we're seeing is, um, there's no visibility, right? You don't know what the agent is referencing, right? Or worse, what it's ignoring. That's a governance and debugging nightmare. The second is that there's no alignment, right? These tools move fast, but often in the wrong direction, violating your architecture, your security policies, and your definition of done. Third is that there's no currency, right? So we see, and as you guys see, our code bases evolve every day, and most models don't keep pace, which means that suggestions are outdated before they even hit the IDE. And fourth is that there's no consistency, right? So one team's agent behaves and another's doesn't. And that inconsistency leads to fragmented standards and unpredictable quality. And then finally, there's no safety net. So every incorrect suggestion becomes rework or risk or a silent failure in production, all of which, or should I say, none of which scales, right? So what makes Tab9 different? It's going to start with our context engine, and right, and unlike generic AI tools, Tab9's agents aren't guessing, right? They're grounded in your actual real-time code base, and they understand your architecture and your style guides and your testing patterns, your way of building software. And that means that the code that they generate isn't just plausible. It's aligned with your standards, validated against your guardrails, and delivered in a way that your developers trust and adopt. And that's what we mean by enterprise grade AI. It's not just fast. It's not just, it's not just fast. It's controlled. It's governed, and it's performant, right? Because scaling AI without trust or control, that's just scaling chaos. And with Tabnine, you get the speed of AI without compromising the integrity of your code base. And as we like to say here, any agent can write code. Ours earn your developer's trust. And we do that through being controlled, through being grounded, and through being secured, right? So let's move back a little bit and let's talk about where we've been, right? And where we're going from here, right? All AI capabilities are rapidly evolving, and Tabnine is continually at the forefront of this emerging space. Right, starting way back in 2018, we're actually the entire inventor and creator of this category. That's when we released our first ever AI-based code model or completion model, for the Java IDE. And we were also known as Codota at that time. And from there in 2019, LLMs emerged for the first time. And of course, we were probably not really aware of them yet because no one really paid attention to LLMs until Chat GPT, or Chat GPT, as some folks like to say, exploded in popularity in the late 2022 or 2021. But with the emergence of this LLM tech, we started to expand our code completions model to cover more languages across all major IDEs. And then the code completions got even better. And in 2022, we got full function, full line, snippet, and block code completions. In 23, we launched our AI chat agent, and that let you use natural language to do code generation through chat. And in 2024, we launched our first iteration of our context engine, developing local IDE context and global context. And 24 also saw us launch our human in the loop AI agents for every step of the SDLC. So this is what we've already built, right? We've built a full set of AI agents for every step of the SDLC, and these agents help you accelerate and simplify the entire software development process. They can help you plan, create, document, test, review, fix, and maintain code. And today you can use all of these agents directly in your IDE like an AI pair programmer, assisting you with each one of these steps. And we're going to show you demos of all of these agents later today. So do not worry. There is some serious excitement in the latter half of this session. Now, where are we going as an industry here, right? AI-enabled software development is going to be able to autonomously execute more and more tasks over time, unlocking more and more value for your business, theoretically. And Tabnine really is your perfect partner along the way through that journey, right? And you might have seen a video of Mark Zuckerberg on the Joe Rogan podcast, whether you love Joe Rogan or hate him. But Zuck said that the AI engineer is already here in 2025. And now I don't believe that's true. And I don't believe that's true for the enterprise. And we don't believe that's true for the enterprise. And literally every enterprise engineering leader that I speak to also doesn't believe that's true for the enterprise. So I'm not entirely sure what Zuck was talking about there, but what we do agree on with them is that this technology has potential, and it's going to continue to improve and evolve and iterate. And it will eventually deliver some form of what many of us in our industry are calling an AI engineer, and what you imagine is one. But this isn't happening tomorrow. It's not happening this year. And forecasts of when it will happen range from, as near as 5 years away to multiple decades. So the truth is, if anyone, including myself, actually tells you they can accurately predict when something like a fully autonomous AI engineer will emerge, that is a statement that you all should take with a grain of salt. So we've grounded ourselves by looking at what's actually happened, right? So let's take a look at where we are actually, and where we are today in transitioning from an AI coding assistant to a semi-autonomous human-in-the-loop agents for specific tasks and capabilities in the SDLC for those mature enterprise engineering teams. Now, before you even get to a true agentic AI for software development, that mature enterprise engineering teams can actually trust and use, there are some things that need to happen. Right, agentic AI needs to use deep organizational insights, right? And that reason, and the reason for that is that in an analysis by a number of independent researchers, Get Clear is a great example of a study that came out of this. But an analysis by these independent researchers, it was observed that in some cases, in teams, as the adoption of AI generated code rose, so did the number of rejected pull requests. Excuse me, parched. And in some cases, that meant there was this massive amount of rejection in code review. But why would that be the case, right? AI clearly knows how to code, and it knows the programming languages. So what's happening? Well, the answer really lies in your organization itself. So if I ask currently I can see here 38 people in the room that are on air right now, the answer to a specific engineering assignment, like to build me a REST API here in my application. It's likely that all 38 of you are going to give me 38 different answers. Now, the problem is that they're all actually correct, right? But the only one that's going to make it is, past pull request and into production is the one that matches my expectations and guidelines and standards here at my organization, right? The one that you've given. So now working with an LLM, it's like hiring a very well-trained software engineer off the street, right? They're going to know the O'Reilly textbook answer to every question that you ask. But they don't know how your organization specifically does things. So at best, they propose code to write a new function or replace an existing function that already exists, ultimately increasing tech debt. And at worst, they could propose changes that could break your corporate policies or adversely affect your application, which is very bad, right? So when you combine the inherent knowledge, though, and capabilities within an LLM with the right understanding from your team, you fix this problem. And that's really about layering the right level of context, which I'll show you here later on in the presentation. Now, to get from an AI chat assistant to an AI code assistant to an autonomous AI engineer, and along the way, this agentic AI that you can trust, there's two things that need to happen that we need to deliver on as an industry. The first is agentic AI for the enterprise needs a comprehensive understanding of company knowledge and standards, right? And the second is that engineers need to have absolute control on a task level over the AI scope and behaviors and decision on how it works, right? So it's a hell of a time to be an engineer. Exciting, thrilling even, right? But it's also challenging for engineering teams, specifically in the enterprise and highly regulated, privacy conscious industries, because many of you have mandates to adopt AI. You want to increase efficiency, right? But you also have to adhere to the internal policies that your organization has in place. And frankly, AI solution providers keep claiming that they all do the same thing, but the proof is in the pudding, as you'll find here with Tabnine. When we actually, you see this demo or you do a trial or a POV with us, you'll see that we're likely one of the few that actually tell you what the capabilities really are and can actually deliver on them. But I digress. So what I'd like to offer you is with some perspective as you undertake this journey evaluating AI and deploying AI agents for your enterprise. We're really going to be your partner along the way. So bear with me a little bit longer. We're going to get to the demo that I know that you all came here for. So we all know what the issue is with LLMs and generic AI code assistants and generic agentic AI software development. And the real issue is that they lack context, right? They give you generic answers, they generate more code and more tech debt. And using any of them today requires you to trade off between uh, privacy and protection and performance. And we don't believe that you need to make that decision here. At Tabnine, we eliminate the need to trade off between privacy, performance, and protection. With Tabnine, you can get it all. And the way we deliver on that is using powerful LLMs and layering our advanced context engine for personalization and combining that with agents that are fully human in the loop, right? Not going to blindly just start changing your code and pushing changes. Everything is done with you being fully aware and Tabnine being fully transparent, and then giving you control over all of the behavior and actions, and then keeping your engineers in the pilot seat. Because I firmly believe that these are not co-pilots, they are your agents. You should have full control over them as you do here at Tabnine. So let's talk about addressing a few barriers to enterprise AI adoption, right? The first one is protecting your organization from the risk of copyright infringement. Now, historically, IP liability present in LLM training data has been akin to Schrodinger's cat, right? It is both. It both is and isn't alive, right? And in that sense, the IP liability both is and isn't present. And organizations using AI haven't been able to look inside the box. But whether you want to or not, it's time to look inside. And we did. And the cat is mostly free of IP liabilities. So this is an important thing to note and share with your legal teams, because nearly 90% of survey respondents from the 2025 RBC CIO survey reported that adopting AI into their processes or they want to adopt AI into their processes by the end of 2025, right? And their biggest concern for nearly 38% of the respondents was copyright infringement. So we want to share our expertise with you in this area. We've worked with a lot of organizations that share this concern. We've helped engineering teams navigate highly restrictive AI policies, and we can even provide teams that have legal policies banning the use of LLMs outright with a compliant pathway to adoption. But here's the important figure for you to ground yourself on. In this study by CMU, Carnegie Mellon University, from last year, they looked at the most popular LLM models and studied the frequency of their generation of code snippets that had a striking similarity score on a benchmark they called LICO eval. Now, and this is used to license protected code. And what they found was the frequency occurring was between 0.8 and a 2.01%. So what the data can tell you is that if you're using third-party models from a reputable provider, the risk of IP liability is quite low. However, you don't just need to rely and bet the farm on that, because Tabnine offers the most comprehensive approach to copyright and IP compliance in the category, right? And we do that with, sort of in three ways. The first is provenance and attribution, which this GIF should be showing, but it's not currently showing right now. So stick around and I'll show you that in the demo. But it's a capability in Tabnine where we check AI generated code from any LLM you're using against publicly visible code, and we flag, and flag matches and references the source and the license for that code. So it makes it really easy to decide if your code meets a specific policy. Now, what's coming soon here is you're going to be able to take that decision out of the hands of the developer, and you're going to set it through the admin console as organizational governance for your AI policies. So you'll be able to determine the license types that you find compliant and the ones that you don't, and suppress the ones that you don't from ever entering your code through AI. Now, we also are the only LLM provider in the market to expose the full set of underlying training data on our side, right? And you can access that through the Tabnine Trust Center, and I'm happy to share that with you and for you guys to review that. Now, capping it all off, we offer contractual protection through indemnification to our enterprise customers, right? So there's really no need to worry. Now, the second thing you need to do here is you need to personalize the output of AI generation to fit your organization's context. Now, this is critical because a generic system can generate code for enterprise-grade challenges, or I guess can a generic system generate code for enterprise-grade challenges? And the study from George Mason University took a look at that. What they found is that generic AI code assistants, such as a Copilot or a Codium, really struggled, or should I say Windsurf, really struggled with hard challenges. And they found that usability issues aligning with Copilot's code and real-world tasks, they noted, inefficiencies with it in those complex environments, like the ones that we work in every day. And specifically, Codium struggled significantly with very hard problems across all categories, with an overall success rate as low as 13% for hard problems. And I'm happy to share any of this report data with the folks here on this call. Now, this is how we solve those problems for you today. And we're going to break down what we're looking at here, because this slide really captures what I think makes Tabnine uniquely and enterprise grade in the realm of AI software development. And I usually find that this leads to a lot of aha moments, right? And understanding what we're doing here, right? So at the center of this platform is Tabnine's context engine, right? And that's the brain behind everything that we do here. And unlike black box models that make guesses based on outdated or generic data, Tabnine's context engine ensures that every AI interaction, whether it's generating code, reviewing it, or validating it, is grounded in your real world context, right? So here's how it works. There's a multi-layered context ingestion, right? So we're not just looking at the code in your open file. We're drawing from your entire workspace, your Git repositories, your project documentation, Jira issues, terminal outputs, and even knowledge-based articles or architecture diagrams. We then have a semantic and vector memory, right? So there's two types of memory that work together to ensure precision. And we extract relevant entities like functions, APIs, dependencies, and create this sort of live, ever-evolving knowledge graph of your system. And this lets us reason about what exists and how it works together. And then we have context prioritization and assembly, right? And this is what separates us from generic tools. We don't throw everything into an LLM and hope that it just sort of sorts it out. Instead, our engine dynamically assembles a precise, enriched context package that aligns to the task at hand, whether it's a code suggestion, a test plan, or documentation, right? So why does all of this matter? Because in an enterprise environment, your code changes daily and your architecture is layered and interconnected, and your security and compliance and performance standards are non-negotiable, right? So Tabnine's context engine ensures that our AI respects those boundaries, so you get speed without sacrificing trust. And at the bottom here, you're just going to see where it all comes together, right? So you have our Tabnine's AI agents to generate, test, document, review, fix, and soon to be edit, which is very, very exciting. It's a way to maintain, modernize, and sort of do multi-file, multi-line edits, right? But again, human in the loop, not going to be able to do it blindly, because we here believe in transparency, and that's what builds trust, right? So it's also important to know that every output is policy aligned, it's architecture aware, and it's grounded in your system, and the systems that your teams actually work in and use, right? So moving forward, let's just cover how we're going to personalize Tabnine, or personalization within Tabnine, and how do we do that, right? So why do we use RAG, right? Well, RAG is basically gives you the output and the intended effect of fine-tuning without having to perform fine-tuning. And it solves one of the criticisms of LLMs, even fine-tuned LLMs when it comes to coding, and that the output of these LLMs or the output that these LLMs produce is out of date. Right, as we said earlier, a fine-tuned model is trained on a specific corpus of code. Once that code base changes, technically that fine-tuned model is going to be out of date. So this is how it sort of works with the stick figure diagram, right? But when you make a query into Tabnine, the guy here is asking, how do I build a REST API or REST client to call the Acme services later? Now, instead of going straight to the LLM and it's spitting out a generic response, what happens first is that this query gets sent to our retrieval system, and it goes into a ranked documents that we've created through indexing. And then that query is rewritten and enhanced prior to being sent to the LLM before generating a response. Now, there's two ways we do augmented generation here at Tabnine. The first one is semantic memory, right? And that basically uses a semantic understanding of the code base to retrieve semantically relevant entities and into the inference context. And this is language specific, right? So we're going to use language specific servers here to analyze the project and create an in-memory representation of this semantic information. The second way we do this here is through vector memory. Now, in this case, we create documents that are retrieved from code sources and non-code sources. Text is then chunked into model digestible pieces, and then we create sort of these numerical embeddings for each chunk and load these into the vector store. And that vector space is updated periodically to reflect the changes in your code. Now, if you were trying to do this through fine-tuning, you would have to run your fine-tuning process on an hourly or by the minute basis. If you've ever tried to do that before, that's, shouldn't say impossible, nothing's impossible, but it's very challenging, very laborious, and very resource exhaustive to do it that quickly. So what this lets you do is expose best practices and make code discoverable and encourage code reuse, as well as control the output of the LLM so that it really fits your organization's context. Now, here is just a further example of how that occurs, right? So if you're using a question or a prompt in the IDE plugin, standalone questions hitting similarity and semantic search, and then it goes over to the vector DB. It's getting our retrieval documents and then pushing all of that information that's contextually enhanced into an LLM. And then boom, you've got a relevant code suggestion. So here's how we increase the quality, excuse me, of AI code recommendations through personalization here. Now there's 4 levels of context. There's local context, there's connection to your code and knowledge bases, there's coaching based on your standards, and then there's ultimately the customization of the underlying models as needed. Now, for our first level of context, local code awareness. Apologies, I am parched over here. When it's just yourself talking on these, mouth tends to get a little dry, but anywho. This is all the data points that we look at, right? And there's about 15 of them. So we have current file, open files, current selection, imported libraries, a compiler, syntax errors, terminal, and other project files, project metadata, Git history, conversation history, connected repositories, the list goes on, right? And all of this gets factored in as context, right, to help make more and more personalized and accurate recommendations. Then the next piece is the connection to your code and knowledge bases, right? So Tabnine can connect to your other software development tools, right, including your code repositories and systems like Jira, which lets the AI leverage your existing work to deliver better recommendations without sacrificing privacy. Now, of course, when you get into coaching, you get explicit guidance on how to control Tabnine and how Tabnine behaves, right? And that operates in the pull request as well as the IDE. So as Tabnine generates code that complies with your systems and your standards. And Tabnine enables customers now to codify their institutional knowledge, right? For example, accepted standards for software development, unique best practices, corporate policies, things that are very, I find often opinionated, right? They're not black and white rules. You can codify those and that institutional knowledge into rules that can be applied in code review at the pull request or in the IDE, right? You provide those parameters that you like to see your code comply with in plain language, and Tabnine converts them into a comprehensive set of rules. And then Tabnine will check those code or check the code in the PR or in the IDE against your set of rules and flag any deviations and offer guidance and suggested edits to fix those issues. Right? So this enables you to generate code that is of higher quality, that is more secure, and that more follows your best practices at scale. Right? I think it's really neat that we're able now to augment here. We're able to augment your best developers, your best engineers, code reviewers knowledge and make it on demand for every developer that's using Tabnine at your organization. It's ultimately taking what I think code review should be, which is educational, it's enjoyable, it's not anxiety inducing, and it's not a bottleneck, which is what we found that it was starting to be, right? Prior to this agent, folks were so productive now with code generation that they found code review was the new bottleneck. So moving forward here, the last sort of piece of personalization is fine tuning, right? And you can fine tune the model for that sort of ultimate level of personalization. So think of hard to read, poorly documented code like Spark or Ada, COBOL, System Verilog. We have enterprises that have fine-tuned their Tabnine model to be trained exclusively on that coding language, right? But that's sort of, I like to say, the last step, right? Before, if you're really not having success, but we often find that RAG does quite the job at delivering people their expected outcome, right? Model fine-tuning more often than not is the juice is not worth the squeeze, in my opinion. It's just some very select edge cases where I think there is great use for it, but not something that should be done right out the gate, right? Which is, I think, what some folks try to push. So let's talk about coaching and why that's important, right? Because any AI code assistant, even a generic one, can generate code, right? But only Tabnine can really validate that code and make sure that it's grounded with your organization's unique policy standards and guidelines, right? So that's incredibly important, right? Because code generated by generic assistants is questionable in its security. So this study here looked at GitHub projects and Copilot generated code. It also examined ChatGPT and Codium, and they found on average 30% of these code snippets generated by these tools have security weaknesses. And the security weaknesses were diverse. They related to 43 different CWEs, and 8 of the CWEs found belong to the currently recognized top of the 2020, I think, 4 or 2023 CWE top 25 list, right, by MITRE. And this is a problem, right? Because you can't scale code generation if you're scaling security weaknesses and technical errors and bugs, right? So this is where that code review really comes in play. And this should be a GIF, but the GIF is not GIFing here, so bear with me a little longer, and I'll show you this in the demo. But what we've developed here is our code review agent. And again, what you can do is you can codify that institutional knowledge, right? And accepted standards for software development and architectural best practices and maintainability rules and security rules and so on and so forth, right? And you can create those guardrails and policies that guide the performance and the output of this generative AI. right? And to do that, there's really 2 or 3 simple ways. The one is uploading a CSV file with just simple plain English descriptions of your rules. The other is that you could point Tabnine to what we call a golden repository, right? So a repo where you have your best practices in place. It's well documented. It's well written code. There's good tests, right? Tabnine can analyze and extract a rule set from there, right? But once you've done that, you've got a code review agent that is completely customized and fine-tuned to you. And it checks and it reads your code in the pull request and is shifting more and more into the IDE over time. So Tabnine's just not going to it'll just generate code that matches your standards from the get-go, even prior to the pull request, which I think is awesome and much needed. So let's continue on here. Now, when we think about future-proofing your AI software development platform, or you need to think about future-proofing your AI software development platform, right? And we give you complete control over your AI infrastructure to do that. And this is really important, right? Because many of our customers are developing their own LLMs. And as we've seen sort of with the rise of Llama and Quen, and I can't not name DeepSeek, right? The LLMs race is far, far from over. And you're going to want flexibility. And that's what you get here, right? Tabnine has deep expertise in leveraging and optimizing large language models for software development tasks, and makes a variety of LLMs available to our customers out of the box, right? And this flexibility gives you 2 key benefits, right? One, you can trust that you will always have access to the latest and greatest models here at Tabnine. And in addition to Tabnine's deployment of these LLMs across a massive array of developers and use cases means we can provide guidance on which LLMs are the best performing for which use cases, right? And the second is that you have full control, just not over just the models in use, but how we connect to them, right? You already have a private endpoint with a leading model provider. We can support that. Deploying your own open source model on a platform like Bedrock, we can support that. You want to run Llama or Tabnine in your air-gapped environment, we can do that too, right? So with Tabnine, you are always in complete control of your AI infrastructure. And as of late, we've launched native support for Llama 3.370B as well as Quen 2.532B with our enterprise self-hosted customers, as well as we have this, I think, groundbreaking capability that allows you to integrate any LLM of your choice in self-hosted environments, right? So whether you need to deploy a highly optimized open source model, leverage models you've already fine-tuned internally, or integrate a specialized third-party model, Tabnine now allows your organization to seamlessly incorporate these models into our AI software development platform, right? And this extended support gives enterprise teams, in my opinion, unprecedented flexibility, right, to select the optimal models for their specific development needs while maintaining that complete control over the deployment architecture, data sovereignty, and system protocols. So all of that lets you create a fully self-contained system, and that is important. So only Tabnine can deliver that total flexibility, total privacy, and total control in play here. And you can deploy us however you would like, right? Of course, you can deploy us via SaaS, but you can deploy us as VPC, you can deploy us on-prem, you can also deploy Tabnine fully air-gapped, right? And what's super cool about all of this is you can have a combination of all of those, multiple deployment types of Tabnine within your same team, right? So that really gives you complete control over your data privacy and performance. And if you are a Dell customer, we have an awesome partnership with Dell AI Factory, right? So now Tabnine is available on the Dell AI Factory, right? So it's this solution that's deployable on premise. It's powered by Dell PowerEdge servers and NVIDIA GPUs, right? So if you are a Dell customer, it's very, very easy to get started there. And they've got some awesome services that they can lend a hand with, one of which being that model fine tuning. So why Tabnine, right? We now have a good understanding of what's happening in the category and the way that Tabnine's capabilities are putting you in the best position possible, right, to leverage these innovations for today and for years to come. So let's cap this all together, right? Any of these? So Boris, it's a great question. It would be helpful to know which specific features or goodies that you're looking at. I will say we have a dev tier that is single seat for your single professional developers, and that's $9 a month, free for 30 days. But then we also have our enterprise tier, which is predominantly which a lot of these goodies are in, and that's $39 a month flat per user with a $100 or 100 seat minimum for enterprise on-prem and a 10-seat minimum for SaaS. Now, all of this information is available online. But yeah, if you give me some more insight here, I'm happy to dive in on which specific ones are available on which tiers. But yeah, we're going to keep moving forward here, though. Great question, though. Appreciate you asking. Now, we built Tabnine for mission critical engineering, right? That means more than just suggesting code. It means being deeply accountable to your developers, tightly aligned with your organization's standards, and protective of your most sensitive IP. So it's controlled, right? It's accountable to your developers. And with Tabnine, engineers stay in control. Our platform provides full visibility into every suggestion. It's backed by references, explanations, and validation against your standards, and nothing ships without human approval, right? This isn't black box AI. This is transparent, explainable AI that engineers trust and adopt. The second piece is it's grounded, right? Onboarded to your organization. Tabnine doesn't just understand programming, it understands your code base, your architecture, your guardrails. It runs inside your environment, adapts to your coding practices, and follows your policies with real-time context and enforcement. This is AI that's trained to think like your team, not a generic model guessing from the outside. And then the last piece here is it's secured. It protects your sensitive IP. And most importantly, Tabnine protects what matters most, and that's your code and your data. So our solution runs fully within your perimeter, whether that's on-prem, air-gapped, or private VPC, or SaaS, right? And no external calls, no third-party inference, just total control over your intellectual property and zero exposure to shadow AI risk, right? And this is what an enterprise grade AI looks like, right? It's controlled, it's grounded, and it's secured. And it's built for engineering teams where trust isn't optional, right? It's mission critical. And the last piece here is it's just not us tooting our own horn, right? We've been recognized by these leading analyst firms. Most recently, Gartner recognized us for our critical capabilities report for AI code assistance, right? And looking at all 12 of the major providers in this space, we ranked first for 3 of the use cases and a very, very close second for the other 2 of the 5. We're also ranked by Everest Group as well as OMDIA. So let's get into the juicy stuff. Let's look at what Tabnine can do here. Solving difficult problems. Let me see here, Boris. I see your question. Solving difficult problems, high quality suggestions based on existing code. That is something that you can get with the dev tier, but things like connection, right? The ability to connect, excuse me, an unlimited amount of repositories, right? Which you'll see here is will be used within our code generation. That's something, for example, that is unique. So I won't maybe take the time right now. I can do it later in the call, going through sort of the differences and what you'll see on a difference in tier, right? But I would encourage you to check out our pricing page on tabnine.com. That is going to have a very comprehensive overview of what's within each tier, the developer and the enterprise tier. Because that is something that here at Tabnine we are specific on. We're very adamant on supporting these very mature enterprise engineering teams, not so much the hobbyist, if you will. Okay, so let us move to me presenting my IDE. Thanks for bearing with me here. Whoa, okay. Let's get in here. All right, so we're going to go over the UI, the Tabnine UI that folks will be interacting with. So each of the agents you'll find along the way and the different form factors within the IDE that you'll find Tab9, right? So starting off, we are in VS Code. Now we support every major IDE agnostic, full feature parity across the suite here. And I will say my StreamYard is hidden right now. So let me just pull this down here so I can see any extra comments we have coming through. Okay, cool. Yes, just to answer your question here, Jiameng, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Sorry if I did not pronounce that correctly. This presentation will be available online. All of these are streamed to our YouTube channel. That is at Tab9 AI on YouTube. You can find all of our previous presentations as well as this one will be streamed there. So no worries if you have to drop. You can always find this again or come back next week. Now, looking at our IDE here. Now, I'm in VS Code, but again, we support all of the major IDEs. Now, we are going to find this Tab9 logo here on the left-hand side. That is going to populate our Tab9 AI chat. So starting at the top, this is our switchable models dropdown. As a user in Tab9, you have the control to use which models have, or whichever model you would like that has been provisioned or set by your system administrator for Tab9, right? So in this case, these are the ones I have available for me, but I'm going to be using 3.5 Sonnet for today. Now, below that, if you are a longtime user of Tab9, you would recognize there used to be our buttons to initialize our agents here. These are now located within the bottom slash sort of icon here populates this dropdown. Now, Tab9 comes standard with about 5 agents: your explain, generate, test, document code, fix code, and code explore. Those come standard out of the box with Tab9. We created those to do a lot of the prompt engineering for you, take the heavy lifting out of prompt engineering for you. But then these other ones are all ones that I've created myself, and I'll get into how we do that later, right? Things that I found myself prompt engineering that I created custom commands to help me speed up that process. Now, at the bottom here, you have your query bar, right? You can use everyday natural conversational language to type in questions, queries, and get answers and suggestions back. You can get more specific by using @mentions, right? So we can mention specific files or specific functions within these files or classes or methods. We can, again, use these slash commands to bring up quick commands or agents. We can also use images as context, right? So we talked about forms of non-code sources as context, images being one of them, right? So being able to take, for example, ER diagrams and turn those into Postgres schema, or if something's broken within your application on the front end, being able to take a screenshot and circle it and then find that code within Tabnine and fix the issue, right? Next to that, we'll have our Jira integration, right? So this is a way to implement and validate Jira tickets, turn Jira tickets to code in Tabnine. And sitting above all of those is our code scope or context scope, excuse me. Now, this allows a developer to determine their scope on a query by query basis, right? Standard is current file, workspace, and codebase, but you can also add in terminal as well as remote code bases. We can get more granular and specify which particular one that we want to use as context, right? Repositories, folders, as well as even files within those folders. Very, very cool. Very powerful. Now, next to that, you're going to find our test beaker, right? Or a testing agent underneath this test icon and beaker. Now, within here, this is where you can generate comprehensive test plans for Tabnine. And we'll show you how to do that either from scratch or utilizing a previously created test plan, iterating on that to ultimately achieve full test coverage or code coverage, right? Which historically has been a very lofty thing for us developers to do. Now, let me go here. Within the project itself, in the files, you will see our Tabnine code lens. So edit, test, explain, document, and if there was something wrong here, you'd see a fix appear on the right-hand side. Now, these are just quick action buttons that give you access to the same functionality of those agents we saw nested within this dropdown. We, of course, have code completions, right? That's nothing new. So as folks are typing within Tabnine, it's going to recognize your intent, right? In this case, this generation, it's recognizing that I am entering more useful rules of the system.out println block, and it's going to generate rule number 17. God bless anyone who has to generate 17 rules for their password generator, or I guess follow 17 rules. But hey, I'm not the end user. I'm just the guy coding it. So 17 lines here, it would generate the next rule. Same goes for documentation, testing, coding an API. Does not matter. Tabnine will recognize your intent and generate relevant suggestions as you're typing. Now, the last piece here, form factor where you'll find Tabnine, is our quick commands dropdown. So starting here, if you do Command I on your MacBook, that's going to populate the quick commands dropdown, where at the top you can use everyday natural language, similar to how you've done here in chat. You can also access our quick commands, so your fix, document, explain, and explore, as well as determine your scope or select your model, right? So it's about that functionality or that flexibility to use whatever functionality feels most comfortable to you, right? One being maybe the furthest out of flow, all of which in the IDE. So how much flow are you really going out of? But all the way through code suggestions and the code lens, which requires you to never have your hands leave the keyboard, right? So again, freedom and flexibility to choose what's most comfortable for you. So let's go through a usual cycle for a software dev, right? Just got out of a team meeting. I'm fresher on this team, not new to the company, but let's say haven't worked with this project in a while, right? So just got out of a sprint, new to the project. I want to start churning through tickets. It's important for me long before I can even start to build is to understand what I'm working with. What is this project? What's the code do? Right? So we're going to jump over here and let's use our Tabnine Code Explorer. We don't care about that. Okay. So Code Explorer is awesome. Code Explorer is a very useful tool for quickly onboarding and refreshing yourself, getting up to speed, I should say, with projects, right? And that might be because you're new to the team. It might be just you haven't looked at it for a while, right? Organizations are huge. Folks have their hands in many different pies. So going from project to project isn't an unusual occurrence for a dev, right? But what this Code Explorer does is it returns a high-level summary, right? It's going to give you information on the project at a high level, how to get started, the structure, as well as some next steps to contribute. It's also going to generate a handful of follow-up questions, right? Allowing the developer to dive deeper on information pertaining to their task, right? I want to learn more about this project. Let's understand what the main purpose is and what problem does this aim to solve. And one neat thing here, you'll notice that Tabnine does code suggestions, but it also does command line suggestions, right? Terminal suggestions, right? So getting started, let's start up that dev server, and it's going to give you that suggestion to do so, that command to do so. Okay, so now we have more of an understanding of what's going on here. We have, we understand the features. It's a fraud detection dashboard. Here are the problems that it solves. More questions if we want to, but let's start to keep going through this process. We can even say, you know, okay, there's an area we learned about, let's say within that overview, and we want to dive a little bit further into it. We can use our explain code. Now, Code Explorer, project-wide. Explain code, specific to components or files at a max, right? You have to select your code, right? So we can't select over multiple sheets. We're just going to select at most a file, but I use it on blocks, right? So after I've had a good understanding of what this is, I use that to dive a little bit deeper and learn more about the project I'm working with. Okay, it's giving us some component structure, some UI structure. And of course, this is the reference that it's using here to get that information, because this is the code that I'm asking questions around. Awesome. Okay, so we have an understanding of what the app is. We have an understanding of how it works and how it all interconnects. Let's start contributing, right? So what we're going to do here is we're going to go over to our Jira board. Now, we have a Jira integration, right? It allows you to take those Jira tickets, turn them into code, and then ultimately validate that that code is correct and up to your organization standards and guidelines. Just to answer these quick questions here, full repo context awareness, for example, that is an enterprise grade feature, Boris. It sounds like you are teetering on that line. I would encourage you to try a demo. $39 a month per user per seat. It's a flat fee. We don't do tokens here as well, so you don't have to worry about the ugly budgeting or forecasting that some of these token providers or token requires make you go through. Bushan, I hope I pronounced that correctly. Yes, we do have a recording for this. All of these will be on our YouTube channel. That's at Tabnine AI on YouTube. You can find this recording as well as all of our previous recordings and all of our future recordings as well. Okie dokie. So back in the Jira agent, right? So this is our Jira board, my specific board. You can see here that, okay, there's 60 to-do tickets, right? And specific to me, there's 16. And geez, 16 to-dos, not a lot of progress has been made on my board. That's we getting a slap for that. But anywho, it's important to note that there's 16 total here. Now, when we're in our instance, or our ID, excuse me, and let's go start a new conversation, and we go to initialize that ticket, right? Or initialize Jira, we're only going to see 3. And why is that, right? Well, Tabnine automatically filters out, of course, every other person's tickets that aren't yours. At the same time, it's only going to show the ones that have been active within the last 30 days, right? So it's not going to overload you and give you everyone, every ticket you've ever had that's still open, and make you sort through your entire teams, right? It's condensed and refined, right? But it updates in real time. Adding a new ticket will immediately update this list. Updating an old ticket will immediately update this list. So let's do our ticket here, and let's say implement this ticket. Now, what Tabnine is going to do is it's going to read that acceptance criteria. It's going to read my ticket description. It's aware of my workspace, my code base, my current project and file, and it's going to generate a response that follows in line with how my organization codes. And what's cool here, and something that I'll dive into, is you'll see it's first doing a test. That's because I have explicitly outlined in my behavior, right, custom behavior, a way that you can control how Tabnine operates at a high level. I've instructed Tabnine to follow TDD, right? So it's always going to provide me a test prior to me going through my implementation of code. Not because I enjoy TDD, just because I need to be better about it. So what we can do here is let's add this test. We're going to hit apply. It's going to show us the diff. We can review and then hit accept. And that's something that's very cool. And I go through it so fast because I use it all the time, but a remarkable feature of Tabnine, apply, right? Apply inserts the code suggestion exactly where it should be, regardless of your cursor location, regardless of file location, or open file, I should say. So it takes the guesswork and the finding the needle in the haystack of the exact right place to place this code so you don't mess up the rest of your code. It's, to me, is a huge headache saver. So, and really quite seamless. As well, we've been making a lot of improvements on this functionality to just make it better and better. So next piece here, let's implement the changes to the dashboard component. Looks good. We'll hit apply. We will review those changes. Awesome. And it's made those following changes. Satisfy. Okay. And let's check our reference. Awesome. Again, doing everything with full transparency. It's not going to make changes and not tell you where those changes came from. I wouldn't trust that. Why should you, right? It's about having that full transparency across every interaction. Now what we can do is we can go back into this ticket and let's validate it. Whoops. Let's make sure it works right. So validate this ticket. Now I have some things in this ticket as far as acceptance criteria that I would say requires human interaction, right? Things that this Tabnine can't explicitly validate. Awesome. So secondary, purple, documentation, update documentation, consider accessibility testing. Okay, they meet the minimum standards. Consider doing user testing, which is something that I've explicitly said within my acceptance criteria. So this is important to acknowledge because Tabnine, wow, it's awesome. It's great. It's able to do it, right? Is it doing it correctly, right? And Yes, it is, but there's also limitations, right? Things like user testing that Tabnine can't do for us. So it's not just going to blindly say, hey, yeah, looks good. It'll say, oh, yeah, you've matched all of this criteria. But there are still a couple things that you need to do based on something that you've previously outlined. And here's how, right? Always keeping you informed, always very transparent, and always having a human in the loop. So we've implemented this ticket. We've added new code. We understand what the project is. Let's continue on our path of, throughout our SDLC. And you know what? Actually, I'm getting ahead of myself. I'm going to show one other thing because we talked about provenance and attribution, right? And I think that's a really, really cool special feature here at Tabnine, right? The ability to, when turned on, Tabnine looks at all of or any suggestion coming out of an LLM and validates that code to make sure it's not using publicly visible code. And if it is, it's going to show you the source codes and the licenses attached to that, right? And I want to show it because without use, right, with just bringing in any licensed code that you want all willy-nilly, there are terrible, like, cascading effects, right? Repercussions that can happen. The horror stories I have from the cybersecurity space on folks not enforcing proper license use was eye-opening. But I digress. Let's show what provenance and attribution really looks like, right? So we'll say, show me how to initial. Oh, if I could only type. Okay, brain fart. Initialize and open telemetry tracer provider. Use Go as the sample. Awesome. Now what Tabnine is going to do here is it's, of course, going to help me implement a OpenTelemetry tracing in my Python application. But we'll give it a second here to write this suggestion for us, and then we'll dive into what I think might be some juicy attribution that we want to be aware of. Of course, it's going to give me a nice explanation. Thank you very much, Claude. Awesome. Okay, this is great stuff. Let's talk about that in a second. First off, attribution. It's orange, right? So gray, permissive licenses detected. Still going to detect licenses, right? But not as critical. You have something like this, right? That is, okay, it's orange. What do we have going on in here? Well, there's MIT, but there's a GPL 2.0. Not so much worried about the Apache 2.0 or the MIT, right? But this GPL is something that raises eyebrows for me. I'm not sure I want to bring that in. In fact, I'm pretty positive I don't. Same goes for this one, right? This Grafana has an AGPL 3.0 license to it. All things that without it, right, you could just, it's easy to bring this into your environment, right? To use this code, you get it into production. Then something, if there's an issue, the amount of rework remediation, those costs are high, right? So this is about future-proofing yourself, right? And then, of course, we have censorship. We can implement censorship to, let's say, I don't want to see any AGPL 3.0 licenses. Any code that would be bringing that in is just going to be, you won't even see it, right? It'll generate code from the get-go that won't even reference any AGPL 3.0 license. Powerful feature. Now, moving forward, let's go into testing. Let's do testing here. So we're going to jump back over into our password generator Java platform. And let's create a test plan. Now, let's use our password.java. What we're going to do here, when you click Generate Test Plan, it's going to prompt you to select code here within Tabnine. Now you can do, unit tests or just focus on blocks. You can also just highlight an entire file sheet, right? And we'll say that's the code we're going to use. Now we could create a test file from scratch. Or in this case, as we found with Tab9, a lot of folks already have test files, right? The enterprise engineering teams that we work with are more often going from 1001 to 1002, right? Not starting from 0 to 1 prototyping. So let's say they already have a testing process in place. They have a test file in place. We'll start there, right? We'll browse and find, whoops. I do have a test file, excuse me. Password test.java. Sweet. And we will hit continue. Now, what it's going to do is it's going to generate this comprehensive test plan for us. Prior, if I didn't have these import statements here or starting from scratch, it would generate the import statements, everything to initialize this file, right? But now that we already have testing here, what Tab9 is doing is it's ingesting and analyzing what I currently have, and it's creating a handful of new tests that don't even come close to the tests I'm currently testing for, right? So what that means is it's ultimately helping me achieve test coverage, full code coverage, which historically has taken folks a very long time. It's laborious, and it sort of goes neck and neck with like documentation, right? No one enjoys doing it, but everyone has to do it because it's part of the process. It's how we make sure that nothing breaks, right? It's our checks and balances. Now, when it comes to implementing these, very, very quickly, you click on the test, it's going to generate this plain English description. It's going to generate the test for you. You'll see it here within code below. You can accept that change or accept that suggestion and apply it, and it will then apply it to the bottom of your your file. Excuse me. Now, let's say that again, these are all suggestions. You want to change one of these. You can polish, fine tune, refine each and every test here. Just describe here at the bottom how you would like to modify it. Click send and it will regenerate that test, but in this case with your modifications in place. So we can say change from, let's see, greater than or equal to 80 to greater than or equal to 100. And now it's going to regenerate that test, but in this case with my changes in place, which you can see here. Well, I'm pointing with my finger like that would work. You can see here at the bottom that 100 bits. So then we'll apply that, and that'll get added into our test file as well. Within due time. All right, where'd that go? Sweet. Okay, cool. So we've added some new tests here. In this case, it knows that I like to have documentation for all of my tests. So as it's been generating, you can see here that it's been attaching documentation and attaching documentation to how my team likes to write documentation, right? I have a specific guidelines here that shows exactly how they should write it depending on which type of documentation it is. Tab9 ingests that, uses that as its workspace context, and helps speed up the process by including those docs within every suggestion, which I think is pretty sharp. So let's talk about creating docs, though, right? Something that we all have to do that no one wants to. So let's find a way to do it scalable and consistent, right? So let's jump over to. We'll jump in here. All of these seem to be written. All right. We're just going to do some deleting here real fast. And we'll do a little demo. All right. So couple ways to generate docs. First, you can use your quick command, right? That command I is going to open up this palette. We can go in and document code from here. It's going to generate documentation for this specific block, right? Again, following in line with how my organization likes to do it. Oops, for some reason, I think I hit the wrong button. All right, well, one way to do it, we're going to keep moving on. The second way to do it is you could even do a full file, right? Don't want to take the time going through individual code blocks. Let's just batch it, right? So we can use this quick command for generating documentation, right? And this is a pre-built command here within Tabnine. It's going to add Java docs for the entire file, right? So you don't have to do it line by line or block by block. You can do, you can batch entire project files to get documentation that falls, again, in line with your organization's standards, how you've historically written your documentation across the entire org. Exponentially faster than what we've been historically used to, right? We didn't go to school to write docs. We went to school to code cool things, to build innovative tech. And this is helping us get back there to that point that we, why we entered the space for. Now, it's also going to help you achieve, again, that consistency that's scalable across your entire team, right? Where every single person, it's not just, Mark wrote great documentation. I love working on his projects. Now everyone in your organization writes documentation like this Mark, right? And that's powerful. Now, moving forward, let's talk about maintaining code, right? Refactoring, modernizing code, right? So we can go into, let's say, where's that password generator? Okay, let's start here. We can say, what version of Java is this code written in? Okay, yep, it's Java 11. It's old. Say, how can I refactor this project into, let's get lofty. Let's do a PHP project. Give me specific steps and a detailed plan of action. Right? So again, it's incredibly context aware, right? So it understands how your organization has historically written code. It understands your project, your workspace. So it's going to be able to not only help you create this or convert and modernize, let's say, an old Java application into a new PHP application, but it's going to do it, again, all in a way that aligns with how your organization writes code. And because it's in your IDE, again, it's context aware, right? Using something like a Chat GPT or a Claude, right, out of the box, a generic LLM, it's going to be able to give you a good response, but it's not going to be specific to your code base and in a way that works at an enterprise level within your organization, right? So, and it's going to take you exponentially longer to get there, where this is, well, it's my whole entire application for this CLI has just been generated for us here. And it gives you the steps on how to do it. So pretty darn cool there. Now, the last piece we're going to cover here is our code review, right? And then again, that happens at the pull request as well as within the IDE. So let's back up and let's go into the admin panel here. So we have our Tabnine admin console, Right. And within that, under the personalization category, you have your coaching rules. Now, tab 9 comes standard, preloaded with a few thousand rules, right, that we've gathered, evaluated, and implemented based on software development best practices from the leading voices in our space. Folks, I'm sure a lot of you folks would be familiar with on this call today. Now, we also encourage, as we said earlier, to import your own rule set, right? Very big believer here at Tab 9 that you can't have a one-size-fits-all approach to AI, especially when it comes to code review. You can't have a one-size-fits-all approach in code review either. So what this does is, again, allows you to import your rules incredibly easily to codify that institutional knowledge that embodies your best code reviewers, your best engineering leaders and managers, right, into rules, and then you can enforce those rules at code review within the IDE or at the PR level, right? So two ways to do that: import a CSV file, plain English descriptions, or plug tab 9 into a we call it a golden repo, right? It's where you have your best written code. It's the most well-maintained. We can extract a rule set from that. Now, a rule, for example, it'll have a description, severity, the language it pertains to, and then good and bad examples. This one specifically created here from my coworker, Josh, all of which, though, can be edited, right? We understand that this is a living, breathing piece of the product, right? So none of this is locked in time. So what does this look like at the developers level? Let's go into our password file here. Let's run tab9 review repository. Now, what this has just done is sent all of these files that have been changed since my last commit out for code review. And it's validating or analyzing and reviewing each of or all of the changes in this commit against the rules I have here within this rules engine. And if there are any issues, it's going to provide the issue, the file, and provide suggestions and remediations to fix that, right? So, okay, we've had it sent for review. Let's review that report. So we can say tab 9 review report -- last. Awesome. Now, looks like there isn't a whole lot, which is good. I'm not having too many issues with my project anymore, but we can see here, okay, the password.java file and the main.java file, there's two issues. So the first one, we're going to say do not use excessive if statements, use switch expressions instead. It's a warning, it's not critical, but I'm still going to pay attention to it. Here's the code to insert, right? And here's the rule ID that was broken. Same thing, here's the code to insert the rule that was broken. Do not manage resources manually. Try with resources statements instead. Just in there. So what we can do, though, is taking it a step further. Again, this is prior to me submitting it for a PR to my code reviewer. I can go in and I can say, let's turn on terminal as context. And we'll say, help me fix the issues found in code review within the terminal. And it's going to review the terminal now as context. Not to beat a dead horse, looking at my current file, looking at my workspace, looking at my code base, and generating code that's going to fix those issues, right? But do it in a manner that's not going to create any new issues. And then it's going to provide those references. Okay, it's using main.java and password.java as the issues or as the context. which we know is accurate because those were the two issues or areas of code that we had issues in. So what's important here to just make sure we're all on the same page is we've just augmented our best engineers. Josh, for example, Josh is a great engineer. I now have Josh's knowledge as well as every other incredible reviewer and engineer at my organization's knowledge augmented and on demand for me as a developer to use any day I want, at whatever time I want, and as many times as I want, right? This coaching agent can't get annoyed with me. It can't tell me to stop sending so many things through code review. I think there's something to be said about that, right? Again, it's making it educational, on demand. It's democratizing. We're decentralizing, democratizing that knowledge, which I think is really, really important, right? Now, let's say we fix all of these. We go into code review. We push this into a PR. Now it's over to the code reviewer, right? What does that look like? From a reviewer's POV, this is what they would see. There's Josh. Let's say I am his code reviewer. I can come through and say, okay, here is his commits, but there's an issue. Okay, here's the first one. It's critical. Here's the to-do. This was useful. Whoops. Second one, okay, another critical one. This seems a little bit more pressing. I'm going to commit that suggestion. I can do that here from PR. We have an integration with GitHub PR, of course. So again, it's just a much more enjoyable, more informed, and scalable way to code review, as well as a high-level summary at the bottom for these loftier PRs. This is, of course, a very short one with only 3 issues, but not all are this sweet and short, unfortunately. So let's see here. I think just a couple things to level set on. When it comes to the code review agent, just to pull this guy back up. It's more like an experienced engineer, senior engineer who understands your specific team's context and preferences, right? Whereas a linting tool is much more fixed, I guess would be the right way to put it. It checks code against predefined rules and patterns, primarily focusing on style and syntax and basic logic issues. It's like a grammar checker that follows a really rigid rule book, right? Whereas within Tabnine, there's rules for architecture, maintainability, things like readability, which is there's a lot of gray area in. Performance, security, it's sort of all encompassing, right? But it's a much more sophisticated level, right? Where it's able to handle those sort of areas of gray, right? Where there's a lot of opinions and all of which can be right? It's just specific to the really unique edge cases that pertain to your organization, right? So differences to help folks out there understand between why maybe a linter isn't just enough anymore, right? Context aware analysis. The code review agent understands your entire code base, right? Understands your patterns, it understands your unique standards, and it can identify if code doesn't align with how your team specifically writes it. Key point, even if the code is technically correct. Linting is only going to check against universal rules and patterns with no understanding of your team's specific approaches or preferences. The next piece is customization depth, right? So this code review agent can be coached, right, through plain language instructions and about your team's preferences and standards. And you can explain very complex architectural principles or business logic, rules that you want it to enforce, right? Where linting is primarily configured through technical rules and like regex patterns, with super limited availability on to understand higher level concepts. And then the next piece would be learning and adaptation, right? So this code review agent is ideally going to get smarter, right, over time of your code base and connection to your repositories and your documentation. It's going to have more of an understanding of your code as it grows, right? It's going to have more rules as you continue to add more and more, right? So it's going to ultimately be able to recognize these patterns specific to your projects, where linting remains static unless it's manually updated. And then we've just found that this level of quality, that the feedback that the code review agent provides, is to a much higher level of detail, as opposed to what you get at a linting level, right? It's usually a brief predefined error message that's associated with that specific issue. So think of it this way: linting, like a spell check, Tabnine's code review is more like having another senior developer who knows your code base inside and out, reviewing your code. So a couple pieces I just want to talk about here at the end, because I think they often get overlooked and they are my favorite areas of Tabnine. The first being response length. I treat every day as a school day, thus I always keep comprehensive on. But if you had, say you're a more senior developer, a principal engineer, and you don't want all of the jumbo that comes with every response, turn on concise. That's going to give you much more to the point answers, code snippets, and save down all the extra copy. The second piece here is going to be custom behaviors. I say this every week or every time I get a chance to talk about it. I think it's my favorite area of the platform. Fundamentally changes how folks can interact with Tabnine. You can do simple things, right? Instruct it to call you by your name or a name. You can get more sophisticated with, let's say, following dry and solid principles. As we've seen here today, follow TDD or add logging where appropriate. This is an area where you can really, again, fundamentally change how Tabnine will interact with you, right? It could feel like a completely different tool based on how you tweak and polish this custom chat behavior section. And even more so, you can use this to localize Tabnine, right? So for folks, as we all know on this call, it's old news to be in a remote team, right? Or to have folks that you work with that might not speak the same language as you speak. What you can do with Tabnine is you can localize it, right? To use English or non-English characters. So think of, anything from Chinese to German to heck, even Marathi. We've tried it and it works. So there's a lot of power there. And then the last piece I'll show you is our custom commands. Some of these are a little silly. Some of them are pretty cool. But the idea with this is to, you find yourself prompt engineering things on a daily, weekly basis. Take the heavy lifting out of it, right? Get creative. I found that my imagination is my only limitation with this area of the product. And I am sort of biased being here at Tabnine, but I think that's incredibly rare to find in a product these days. There's usually, pretty strict, well, you can't do this, you can't do that, you can't do this. I've yet to find, I find things every day. I create a new custom command that I'm pretty impressed with. But just to give you an idea, for example, a custom command that one of my favorites is we have a customer who builds hardware, right? Now, this customer has, let's call it 1,000 different tests that they have to run a piece of hardware through that gets built. Relatively the same test, but it's specific. It has to get built around that piece of hardware. Now they have a big template where they have all of these tests being stored, sort of as the boilerplate testing framework. They've created a custom command that takes the selected code, right? Creates a new test file using that old boilerplate test code in a different file, right? To create this new file with 1,000 of these tests, but framed around this new component they've just built, or this new piece of hardware they've just built, right? So it's that ability to exponentially speed up things that you found yourself spending, a ton of time or having trouble completing, right? Laborious manual processes that you don't enjoy, documentation, updating dependencies, creating readmes for a project, right? All of which you can do now. How are you supposed to create a readme, for example, with ChatGPT, right? If it doesn't understand your project, it's not going to be specific, right? But using Tabnine, for example, I can create a README for any project that I have within seconds, right? And then add that in. It's going to be contextually accurate, which saves me, potentially hours worth of time. So to give you just an idea, this is how you create one. So let's say we'll create one for updating dependencies here. Let's see. Update, or if there's any custom commands anyone wants to see me create, feel free to drop them in chat. I am happy to take a stab at creating any of them. But if I don't get any, don't worry. I'm just going to continue on this chain here. So let's say update my Java dependencies. We'll do POM. Scan POM .xml for updates. So when creating custom commands, I always tell folks, do them in sequential order. Don't be afraid to iterate. This is all good tips in general for using AI. Be specific, use steps, right? Break things out. Be very clear about what you say. Don't be afraid to iterate and ask more and go for more questions. But let's say, look at my POM XML file and analyze all dependencies. If the goal is to update all dependencies to the newest version, update the POM. This is a terrible way to write this, but we're just going to keep going with it. POM XML have updated dependencies. Okay, and let's save that. Now we can go here to chat. Let's open up this, start a new conversation. I always tell folks, AI is similar to your brain. It can only handle so much information. If you are talking to a friend here and you start talking about, you pick one topic, you finish that conversation on that topic, and then you move on to the next topic, right? Don't jump around to 5 different topics in one conversation, right? Imagine talking to someone and being like, well, there's this bug, and then I found this bug, and then I found this other bug, and then there's another bug. Your head would be all over the place, right? AI is very similar to that. It can only handle so much. You can go back to previous conversations, but every time you have, I like to say, a new goal, a new intent, start a new conversation. Just helps make things easier. So let's initialize this. Oh gosh, update my Java dependencies. Sweet. So here's the current dependency analysis. Instead of me going around being like, oh, is this one up to date? Looking on the web, it's going to go through and it's going to say, okay, here's analysis. Here's the updated dependencies with the latest version. There is some attribution. Here are my changes. And it's having some additional recommendations for me. Now I've used testing in a different service here, right? I used JUnit prior. And what it's doing is with my code space or workspace being codebase being on, it's using that information as context, right? So it recognizes, okay, he's already used it here within this microservices demo. I'm going to bring that in as context so I can help, as the write code as the organization likes to write code. And then if you want to go check out what that looks like, I can click on that reference for any code. Remote repositories, though, will open up the specific repository that code is being referenced on GitHub and the specific area of that code, those 20 lines, right? So you can easily go back and reference and review and see where it's pulling that context from. But awesome. Same thing goes here. We can just apply those changes, review the diff, update, and there we go. Let's just synchronize that. Awesome. So that is it. That is end to end. We've went through onboarding and planning into a new project, all the way through creating new code using our Jira integration, what attribution and provenance looks like, and creating documentation, testing, maintaining code, as well as fixing and refactoring code, right? Taking Java and going to a PHP program. If there are any other questions, I'm happy to answer them now. In the last few minutes here, I know we've already been online here for about an hour and 44 minutes. I say this every week. I could stay on here for 3 hours. This is my favorite part of the job, getting to come on and demo. And additionally, I should say, if there are other things that folks here want to hear about, right? Topics, things that you've been hearing in the market and out in the world, let me know. You can put them in comments. You can message me on LinkedIn. Always looking for to make these talks and sessions more engaging and relatable to you folks out in the audience. So I'll leave this running for a second here while folks, if you have any questions, feel free to ask them. But if we don't get anything in the next 60 seconds, we will we'll shut this one down for this week. Okay, so Toto, nice. Appreciate the question. Thank you for asking. Yeah, so we have something very exciting on our roadmap that we briefly talked about earlier within this presentation. One of the pieces here, let me pull this up. One of the new pieces for us here in the next coming months is going to be a edit agent, right? The ability to do bigger batch changes, right? Not batch in the sense that it's blindly doing things without you knowing them, but batch in the sense of multi-file, multi-step flows, right? So I want to oh, and totally okay. Yeah, if you weren't here in the beginning, totally understand. What it does is yeah, so similar to how you think of like the flashy flows from a cursor or a windsurf, right? Similar in that sense, but ours is going to be different where we're going to have a human in the loop, right? We're never going to just be blindly automating and blindly doing changes, right? Without you knowing what's going on, right? Vibe coding is awesome until you have to vibe debug, then it sucks. And we also believe that having a human in the loop, right, just going and approving these, you'll find that when this new edit agent works, right, it'll go through a step. It'll give you the thumbs up. Do you want to do it? Do you like it? Accept, reject. When you accept or reject, then it will move on to the next step, right? But it won't require multiple lines of prompting, right? It's capable of much bigger tasks, right? So I think that's what you're looking for, hinting at. And the answer is yes, that is going to happen soon. It's close enough that we're starting to put it on our slides now. So I can confirm it'll be here in due time. But a very, very exciting release from us here at Tabnine for the year of 25. It's a highlight, in my opinion. And then the second part of your question, MCP server support. Yes, that is on our roadmap and is coming up. I can get you back specific. I'll put it this way. Nah, you won't have to wait much longer. It will be here again very shortly. Both of those things are nearing our go time on our roadmap. But great questions. Are you going to add it also within the Eclipse plugin? I believe so. Yes, there might be a slight delay due to we might go with IntelliJ VS Code in Studio first, but I believe it will. I know it will be in there. It might just be slightly staggered, but again, I'm just that's my understanding. We do aim to have feature parity, and ultimately we'll have feature parity across the entire platform or across all IDEs. But for these newer big features, when they first come out, I'll have to pick a pending on that one there. Great questions, though. Appreciate you asking them. Any further questions, comments, concerns, anything that you didn't see that you wish you would have? Or if you joined late, anything that you might have missed that you were hoping to see, I'm happy to cover. And if not, this is not your only and final opportunity to talk to me and answer or ask questions. I will be here next week, same place, 3.5 hours earlier in the day, so 7 a.m. PT for you West Coast folks. Yeah, but if not, we'll see folks here next week. As always, thank you again for joining this session of Tabnine Office Hours. Best part of my job, getting a chance to come on and talk to you folks here. So undo a previous accept and we have one more question here. Is there ability to undo a previous accept and not get it confused? Of course, you can do the command sort of Z, right, or the undo. And if you were to go through and let's say accept a change, you could Command Z and it'll go back and take that away to undo that. But I know there has been talk of doing something like those undos within your flow, right? For example, you go to like, let's say you're using Replit or Cursor or Codium, and it does a big multi-file, multi-step uh, edit, right, or change, and it breaks your program. And then you're left there thinking, okay, I want to go back to where I was prior to me doing this, so I don't, you know, I don't want my application broken. I'm going to go a different route, right? But how do you get back there? At this point, we haven't really had a huge need for something like that, in that sense, where everything is human in the loop, right? Done with full transparency and done with the developer driving that interaction, right? So when something does have I would say like an inverse effect to what was the initial goal, right? I want to add something and ends up breaking something as opposed to um, making it better, then of course it's much easier to just go back and delete that change or undo that change because you are in the loop, right? So I don't think it's been much of a need yet for folks here at Tab9, but no, it's something that we are exploring, right? Is that ability to go back to previous versions, but don't have a firm date and not a firm ability or feature right now to do that within the program. But great question, Matt. Thanks for asking. Many thanks for the interesting presentation. Many thanks for coming and staying around for almost 2 hours. An intelligent undo does sound good. That would be nice. But if there aren't any other questions, I will wrap things up. As always, it's been a pleasure, and I will see you folks here, not the same time, but the same place next week. Thanks for coming by, and we'll talk soon. If you have any questions, feel free. You can always reach out to me on LinkedIn. Just shoot me a message there. Cheers.